for most schools, how to deliver, or in some cases, just how to communicate any content took priority over quality, rigor, and mastery of content this spring. Where are leadership teams now on planning for the delivery of quality content? Or is that just not even on the table right now?
We had weekly data meetings, weekly PLCs with different groups of teachers, and allows for the teacher to talk. What's really working well inside of your classroom, where the students responding to and the teachers responding to. I think after going through that process for a month, we actually got a chance to get some good resources, and we have to try to, that same momentum that we left off on, we have to kind of continue that in September.
For us, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, right? So we have structures in place for how math lessons are taught and how ELA lessons are taught. So we asked the teachers to use those same similar structures when making the videos for the students. So we wanted to make sure that students, teachers were not doing anything that they weren't used to doing, other than making videos, of course, but we try to stick to our structure as much as possible. My school has been in existence for 15 years. So we pretty much have a solid way of delivering instruction. So we try to mirror that as closely as possible for virtual learning as well. So it wasn't as much of a shift for our teachers, but it was a shift for our parents, right? Because they were the ones having to actually somewhat share in the delivery of the lesson. So that's where I saw the struggle, but not so much with our teachers and our instruction. But, we also want to make sure that assessments are rigorous, and, the practice activities are grade equivalent, and ensure that we're keeping teachers accountable throughout this process too, right? So teachers are not just giving them YouTube videos to watch, or just, hey, go practice on IXL and that's it, just making sure that we uphold the integrity of our instructional program. So that's something that we are thinking about as we continue to plan as well.
I do believe that for us, it's still, in development. I think the transition in the springtime, the thought process was that everybody felt like it was going to be temporary, so they wanted to do the best job they could under the circumstances. Now this has to be more, more strategic, more purposeful. And I think that it's a little intimidating for a lot of our teachers right now just to think about that. And so right now we realize that we are going to be able to figure out the physical accommodations that we have to make with regards to our roster and how to accommodate students to come into a hybrid program. I think the challenge we're going to really we run into is really how to provide that solid instruction without necessarily burning out the teachers or having them feel overwhelmed. And so we're trying to do a delicate balance with all of that, with this new model, and trying to plan out throughout the year, school year. So right now the teachers were just grateful to take a break right now for the beginning of summer, just to kind of get away and take a moment to breathe and take in everything that's going on around us in the world, let alone what's happening, in our profession. So that's why I'll be honest with you, I've been talking to my leadership team, but I haven't really broached the topic with my staff at this point, because they just were feeling a lot at the end of the school year.
The school I'm at right now, we use PowerPoints for instruction, and I brought it right over to Zoom, and I was able to display the PowerPoint, and it was nothing different. I hope to continue doing that at my new school. The students really did enjoy that, and it was like a visual aid for them.
I've been an educator for 12 years now, but regardless of if you're a new teacher or a veteran, all of us are pioneering this new experience, because none of us have really had to encounter a pandemic that shuts our school down, and now we're teaching remotely using technology. And so what I took from the school year that just ended is it was kind of like triage, where we had this emergency, we kind of had to make do with what we had, and it didn't really matter, especially once PSSAs were canceled. So you could kind of just say, all right, let's embrace the moment, teach what we can. And even if they don't cross that finish line compared to what the traditional standards are, at least we got them across the finish line. However, I feel like this upcoming school year should be more about vitality, because eventually those standardized testing is going to come into play. Common Core still exists, and naturally the requirements that we had to teach virtually is definitely stinted compared to what we probably get across doing direct instruction in the classroom. And even though I'm not part of the leadership, I really do admire how we created a website so it was easily accessible to everybody. My school uses Google Classroom and my middle school is really familiar with it, but I'm kind of trusting that whoever is involved over the summer is taking a lot of our testimony and a lot of that data to then create this plan that many people can trust and buy into. Because unless we start investing in something consistent, we're not going to be able to evaluate if it's really going to be something that leads to vitality or if we're just going to flounder in the long run.
A question for the school leaders. Do you feel that you have the skill set as a leader to provide professional development for your teachers on the new normal? How do you feel as a school leader that you're prepared to like execute development with teachers on building rapport virtually and doing these kinds of things?
All the above. I feel very confident in being able to do it because it has to get done. Like we're in a situation now where at the end of the day, despite what's happening, we still are in the business of making sure that our students are being served and served equitably. And it has to be, something that we focus on. I think that, the biggest skill set is also just accepting the fact that, we aren't the experts, but we're more than willing to learn alongside with our teachers. And that has to be just as important to make them feel comfortable with this process. I don't want them to think that I have a certain expectation of perfection in my mind when in fact, I really don't. Really it's about, how can we put together the best laid program we can possibly have. And I think that learning process is going to happen, with our staff. Is going to also happen also with engaging with partnerships that will, provide us the best, resources and opportunities to improve as much as possible. So do I feel confident in my skill set? Absolutely. But I feel confident only because I know that I'm willing to learn alongside with my staff as well to ensure that we have the best possible program under the circumstances.
I really love flipping around and coaching and developing individuals. And then I have another perspective. Outside of my school that I serve, we can probably almost agree that all of the students in this country will be receiving some type of virtual learning format, right? And everybody's guided by academic standards and instructional practices. I'm not confident to say that us as a nation, that we have tight instructional practices to support virtual learning. I may have missed them on Google. I've been looking, I've been searching, maybe Will missed them. But I'm gonna be honest, I haven't found that to ground my professional development, to ground my work. I've been using a lot of the grounding pieces of what's working for a teacher. And I think that keeps the teacher voice, right? That's great to have that voice, but I also would like something else to ground my work in as well.
I echo Will and Robert for sure. I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. So I've been doing a lot of research on what other states are doing, what other countries are doing, just to see what trends are. I feel like it is my obligation to stay abreast to what's happening in the world and in other states so that I can make the best informed decision for my school, right? So I'm very open with my staff to saying like, look, I'm learning too, and that's okay, right? And understand that I am human and I'm not always gonna have all of the answers, but I'm gonna try to get the best answers and try to do the best to serve our students and to serve you as well. So it's just me. I do spend hours at night just reading different articles and different things and just trying to stay on top of it so that I can continue to inform and keep all my stakeholders informed. Because there's no right answer, there's no right way of doing it, right? So I just, like to Will's point of like making sure like the integrity of the instructional program is there, that's a really hard thing to do because they're not sitting in front of you. So I know other leaders who have said, hey, this is our time to be revolutionary. Like we can change things, right? Like that's exciting as well. So we can start to think about it in that way too. Like how can we, this is new school. How do we make this the 2020 version of school. So I look forward to thinking about that as well, while still providing for everyone, which is not an easy task, but always willing to learn and having these conversations with other leaders and hearing what you all are going through and what's on your minds at night is really helpful for me too.
So I think that what I think has been awesome is the amount of PD the teachers have gotten is more PD than I think they've gotten in a lifetime. And PD they wanted and they needed. right? Not just like somebody shows up and gives them something and they're like, why is this person here, right? So I think that's been really exciting. And I've actually run some of those professional developments for teachers in like different states and all over the state of Pennsylvania through webinars. So like the access that people now have to people who aren't necessarily in their immediate community is pretty exciting. You know, to back up a little bit on the content conversation and kind of conversations about the quality of content, because that is tied to professional development and things like that, is what I'm hoping I see is districts understanding that less is more with remote instruction. I think, Richard, you kind of alluded to that, maybe, that the idea that, you know, you are not going to quote unquote cover, like you're not going to meet the scope and sequence of a traditional year. And if you talk to people who've been doing online instruction for their entire career, they will tell you, I don't teach that much content, right? Because you just can't. So I'm hoping that some of the professional development will go into, and this preparation, right, will go into can we stop saying delivery of content? Because that to me is like you open the brain and you pour the knowledge in, like that whole, you know, image of like how we teach. And remote instruction is great for that, because you can go, here, watch this video, you learn something, right? But what I hope that we move into is more of like this idea of authentic learning. I'm at home. I can go to my kitchen and find a measuring cup, right? And I don't have to do a worksheet on measuring or numbers, right? I can use the things that are in my home to do it, or my family members, or, you know, my community. And so, you know, I guess I just hope that districts kind of are flexible, to your point, Cindy, about like new school, right? Like, how do we think outside the box? Somebody else said, maybe with you, Will, about, you know, how we do this. And the professional development I hope the teachers get is there's a model called the SAMR or SAMR model, right? So it's substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. And so if we're just taking worksheets and putting them in Google Classroom, like that is not quality instruction. But if we are asking kids to do things that require more steps, right, and like kind of engaging them with the technology more, you know, we're all, there's like that, you know, we're all in this together thing we've been, you know, that you see on like signs and everything. And so these kinds of conversations, you know, listening to you guys share your thoughts and just kind of reaching out to people, I think will be really important.
Absolutely. So thank you, everyone. Remember, we're your partners in education, EduConfident, and CTI Tech Services.